Hey all, so for today we're going to talk about the A-side element and how that looks and what it is and how to use it. So here it is, A-side. What do we put inside of it? We can put, like a paragraph and some content, right? But what I'd like you to think about it is, I don't know why this is, but even for me, when I first saw it, I just initially thought that, oh, it's the A-side element. It must mean that it's the sidebar. I don't know how we all kind of seem to make that connection, and that's a lot of these tags kind of play those tricks in our mind of how we, just because we read it one way, maybe that's how we interpret it. But let's be a little bit careful and dive into why that isn't the case. So as far as it being a sidebar element. So the A-side element used to be only used inside of the article. And this is another kind of topic, but the spec changes, right? Us as developers kind of said, hey, this doesn't really always make sense to only put it inside of an article tag. It should be able to go in other places. And so, the spec changed. So we always need to be aware of that. These elements, they're always changing, evolving, and how to use them and all that. So sometimes it provides more flexibility. Sometimes they become maybe more restrictive. So just keep that in mind as well. So yeah, typically you'd have, your main content. So if we were talking about gold and silver or something, and then here we wanted to have like a call out of this content. So my example is like, say we're talking about gold and silver. We could then have this call out that like, boom, highlights everything to do with gold, and oh, gold's this, this, and this is where it comes from, and this is the type of metal. It might not necessarily relate to the article, or well, it will relate, but it doesn't necessarily have to be part of our article's flow. So meaning if we removed all this, nothing would really be taken away or missing from the article. This just kind of adds to the article, and you can kind of style it. So if I have this other example pulled up, like if you're reading a book and you're reading about some section of the book, then you usually see those little call out sections. Not the greatest looking example, but just so you can kind of visually see. That's when an A-side element would be on the web, right? It has other information or something, kind of secondary. So if you want to think of it like that. So other use cases that we see here, like in this example, they're saying that it's displayed as a sidebar usually. I really don't know that that's so correct. I would think that you can use this inside of like a sidebar, and maybe you were to have your sidebar links and all this other stuff. You could say like A-side, by Rich Edmonds, see him on Twitter or something like that. Maybe just some secondary information that's not necessarily super important is how I'd kind of word that. So let's go check it out here as well. You can see in this example, they've got the A-side right inside of like the paragraph tags, and there's the call out, right? The only thing that's kind of strange is we're not really permitted or allowed to use this element inside of an address element. So that's kind of the only real gotcha. Again, they're kind of mentioning don't use it to style text. We would want that to be more, we could do that more with CSS. So yeah, again, don't use it as a sidebar. I know we can move this in different places, if it relates to the page, but I wouldn't use that as a main building block to kind of create that layout, right? That would probably be a little improper. So hope that helps. Hope you found it interesting, and let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions. I can drop some other links to some resources where you can go read more about it. Okay, catch you in the next one. Later.